Happy Thursday. We've got just a handful of days before the November general election. That is on Tuesday coming up, and a lot to get to. It is Springfield's Morning News. I'm Greg Bishop on 92.7 WMAY. Springfield's News and Talk. It looks like it's going to be a gorgeous day. We've got sunny skies expected, the high of 76, but a chance of showers heading into the weekend. Saturday, expecting showers off and on all throughout the day. But looking ahead into Tuesday, looks like it's going to be gorgeous, mostly sunny with a high of 66. A lot of times, sometimes Election Day can be overcast with rain, and people question if that's going to change the turnout. But I think with sunny skies, you might see a good turnout, especially those voting in person. But there's been questions raised about election integrity, especially with an increase in the access to mail-in balloting. And that's led to some interesting conversations in just the past 24 hours, especially with President Joe Biden giving a speech about election integrity, and we'll get to that in a moment. But some of the various political headlines that we want to get to, of course, Biden, he is planning on visiting Illinois tomorrow ahead of Tuesday's vote. Likely he's going to be campaigning for Governor J.B. Pritzker and other Democrats all across the state. And apparently the vice president's going to be in Chicago Sunday. This as you've got the various candidates traversing the states and sharing their platform and giving their stump speeches and the like. But one thing that is clear is we've seen instances of political violence or threats of violence across the country. Obviously, you've got the national media, a lot of focus on what happened with the U.S. House Speaker's husband, Paul Pelosi, in their home, and they're talking about how that's political violence. But we have something even here closer to home. It was revealed in reports out of Chicago that a 21-year-old faces multiple charges for threats that he made via voicemail to State Senator Darren Bailey's campaign for governor. Scott Lennox, 21-year-old, says that he was angry over political TV commercials at a bar, which led him to get into arguments with his friend, and that he sent a voicemail to Darren Bailey's campaign saying that he would mutilate and kill him and his family. So bail was set at $75,000. Scott Lennox, 21, of North Lakeshore Drive in Chicago. The voicemail came in on Friday, and some of the text here from the voicemail reported on by the Chicago Sun-Times. Quote, "I'm going to skin Darren Bailey alive, making sure he is still alive, and I'm going to feed his blanking family to him as he's alive and screaming in blanking pain." He further went on to say that he is a piece of white blank racist blank. And honestly, if he doesn't kill himself, I will, that person said in the voicemail. You know what? I know where he lives. I know where he sleeps. I know where his kids sleep. And I know that the effing school he works at. Prosecutors allege that he said. The candidate teaches all his mother effing misinformation is going to die. So honestly, he should just kill himself before anything else happens, allegedly is what the voicemail said. So, of course, the individual here threatening to mutilate and kill the Republican challenger to incumbent Darren Bailey obviously raises some concerns about increased threats of violence against political actors. What's interesting here is Illinois Secretary of State Police didn't immediately deem the individual a credible threat, but further investigation by Illinois State Police led police to pursue the individual. And they even in their investigation found that Lennox allegedly bragged to his friends about how he was a political terrorist and how he felt so effing accomplished. And it's one of those things where obviously, we want to combat any kind of political violence wherever possible. But here we are, of course, just a handful of days before the election, and we'll talk about, how the elections are going to be handled in Illinois, how they're going to be monitored, the different types of election machines that are used. So we'll get to that in the next segment. But talking about the election process, President Joe Biden last night gave a speech where he talked about the election process and warned that there's going to be some problems and questioning those who question elections. So here is President Joe Biden, a few clips from last night's speech. And again, it's all about election integrity that President Biden's talking about here.
We can't pretend it's just going to solve itself. There's an alarming rise in the number of our people in this country condoning political violence. We're facing a defining moment, an inflection point. We must, with one overwhelming, unified voice, speak as a country and say there's no place for voter intimidation or political violence in America. A vote is not a partisan tool to be counted when it helps your candidates and tossed aside when it doesn't.
So President Joe Biden also talked about mail-in balloting and something that we know here in Illinois, where we're told it's normal, though it's being challenged in federal court, and that's the ability to count mail-in ballots up to 2 weeks after the close of the polls on Election Day. And again, President Joe Biden talking about that particular issue and how you should just trust it.
We know that more and more ballots are cast in early voting or by mail in America. And we know that many states don't start counting those ballots until after the polls close on November 8th. That means in some cases we won't know the winner of the election for a few days after the election. We know that more and more ballots are cast in early voting or by mail in America. And we know that many states don't start counting those ballots until after the polls close on November 8th.
And again, in Illinois, it's upwards to 2 weeks. So again, this is on the heels of a speech that the president gave a few weeks ago, saying that ultra mega MAGA Republicans are a threat to democracy. And this seems to be the closing argument. And we saw this similar type of messaging of Governor J.B. Pritzker demanding that his Republican challenger, Darren Bailey, accept the outcome of the elections. This, of course, being issued 7 days or so before the election even takes place. Which is interesting. We haven't seen the process play out yet, and there could be significant problems. Could be. So why preempt any possible problems with a statement of, I'm going to trust the election outcome thoroughly and intensely before the election even happens? So this is interesting because, of course, when you hear that rhetoric of, alleging people are going to be election deniers, you also have to, see what was said on the other side for years on years. And this is just a sample of some of the statements that have been made. Video online circulating of 10 minutes of Democrats denying election results.
You can even become the nominee.
Hillary Clinton.
And you can have the election stolen from you.
And a whole bunch of others raising...
How can you win with Russian interference, though?
Questions of Russian interference. This is the then Senator Kamala Harris and now Vice President.
You are absolutely right.
He's an illegitimate president in my mind.
Would you be my vice president?
Joe Biden.
Folks, look, I absolutely agree.
Trump didn't actually win the election in 2016. He lost the election. And he was put in office because the Russians interfered.
Again, that was former President Jimmy Carter. It goes on from there. So it's 10 minutes worth of election denying from Democrats. And you even had, members of both parties for years, decades even, officially objecting through the legitimate process of certifying elections, people in Congress standing up and objecting to the certification of elections from both parties against the others on the other side of the aisle. But are we hearing a lot more about this because of what the polling suggests here? And are we trying to see, is this an effort of voter suppression maybe? Because some of the Real Clear Politics average poll numbers from across the spectrum here show that President Joe Biden's approval rating is dismal. 54% disapprove of the president in one poll, 58% disapprove of the president in a CNN poll. As we head into the midterm elections, that's not pretty. You've also got the direction of the country. 69% say that the country's on the wrong track, and that's a Politico poll. You've also got other polls asking about generic ballots, and it looks like Republicans are leading on a generic ballot vote with 47% over 45% for Democrats, also leading in a Rasmussen poll, and just a generic congressional vote out of Data for Progress. Republicans are leading 49 to 45%. And again, the direction of the country polls also raising substantial concern for Democrats. But President Joe Biden making a speech last night, seeming to cast shade on anybody who asks questions about the election. Let's get to a phone call here at 217-629-7970. That's the phone number with Springfield's Morning News. I'm Greg Bishop on 92.7 WMAY, and good morning. You're on the air.
Hey, good morning, Greg. Hey, I got a question for you. I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you trust an election? I mean, for it to be a legitimate election, I mean, your vote, I mean, you count them ballots 2 weeks after. To me, that's like, okay, let's see how many we got to find. Let's scurry around. We got to find another 100,000 or 50,000 ballots that's in our favor. I mean, that ain't right. I mean, to me, I mean, so I guess I'm asking you the question. How, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you trust the election?
I'm not going to necessarily give you a rating of sorts, but I will say that I've talked with a lot of people across the spectrum, and some people are okay with waiting 2 weeks to get the ballots in that are mailed in. Others, they want the election decided that night. Yeah, there might be some provisional ballots that come in, but they want mail-in ballots. If they are used to the scale Illinois uses them and other states are using them, they should be in and counted election night, not up to 2 weeks later, because even the Heritage Foundation giving Illinois, maybe this is the answer for you. The Heritage Foundation gave Illinois a rank of 40 out of 50 for election integrity. A lot of that driven by the mail-in balloting process, the drop box process, and a variety of other issues that are raised by the Heritage Foundation. So maybe that's the answer for you.
Yeah, I mean, well, you got to go vote. I'm saying you got to vote. That's your right, and you've got to do it, whatever the outcome may be. But
it's your duty.
The problem is, though, I have some young sons that have voted. I've always said, man, dude, from 18, you got to register, vote, and you go vote. But to be honest with you, after the last election, our presidential election, they're like, man, there ain't no way. What's the use of me voting anymore? Because that was all overthrown. I mean,
that's a dangerous place to lead towards, and that would be despotism, where we all are, in a way, not trusting of our institutions, and then we have just a public that is not willing to, in a way, take to heart what political leaders are saying, and that could lead to some really, really bad things. I appreciate the call. Got to take another one here. Actually, we got to take a break, so stay tuned. We'll talk more about the election process, and in particular in Illinois, how many different types of election machines are there? And we will also take some more calls. Before the break, though, let's get this one in. Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Hey, good morning, Greg. Yeah, you know that movie 2,000 Mules, and based on what the caller just said, as far as the drop boxes and everything like that, I have no problem with, I do kind of have a problem with the drop boxes, but I think that they should be guarded. I've seen a thing in the news recently where I think it was out in Arizona. Yeah. A judge ruled that it was illegal to have someone guarding the drop box. I think or you can't have cameras on it. I can see not having like an armed guard standing there or something, but if a judge rules that it's illegal to have a camera stationed at a drop box so that you can see if there's any funny business going on, What's going on with that?
Yeah, and that's obviously something that we want to see is transparent and open and clear. Because when you have reports of people dropping off 5 or 6 different ballots for one person dropping it off, ballot harvesting is a major issue. Hey guys, I got to take a break. It is Springfield's Morning News on WMAY. So in Illinois, we've got the mail-in balloting that's taking place, and last number I saw was it was like more than 800,000 mail-in ballots, with nearly 500,000 still outstanding. So we'll see how that plays out in the next few days here with mail-in ballots that are out after we opened up the mail-in balloting process from absentee balloting. For those of you who are going to vote in the polls in person, it looks like you've got a choice of, actually, per county, you don't have a choice. There's 6 different voting machines across the state being implemented. 6 different voting machines across the state. Illinois State Board of Elections spokesman Matt Dietrich talks a little bit about that.
There are 6 voting systems that are certified for use in Illinois, and we do the certifying. Before any election system can come to us for certification, it first has to pass inspection.
So 6 different systems available, including systems from Dominion. Voters in Chicago and Cook County will use the Democracy Suite from Dominion, and Dominion will be the support vendor. But Dietrich said that voters don't have anything to worry about when it comes to Dominion voting machines.
Completely untrue and unfounded. And by the way, the subject of a very large lawsuit by now, in which Dominion is suing several of the media outlets that repeated those outlandish statements.
Now, Dominion, controversy developing around them for the 2020 presidential election. As some made unsupported claims, the company's equipment could change or delete votes. So interesting to see that. Also, other headlines, you've got the U.S. Attorney's offices across the Illinois state that have set up hotlines to report any voting rights complaints on Election Day. So that's something else to consider. And the Illinois State Board of Elections is warning about possible text message election misinformation. And I've even gotten one of these text messages with my first name correct, but my address was way off, saying I lived in a totally different city and giving me a link to where I could find out where to vote. So we'll obviously be talking more about this, of course, with the election now just a handful of days away, and it's obviously going to be dominating our conversations in the days ahead. It is Springfield's Morning News. I'm Greg Bishop on WMAY. Don't forget, you can follow along Bishop on Air, Twitter, Facebook, also YouTube, and coming up next, we got a lot more.